match brought with it a lot of a mix and match of different genres of books that I read. And finally, I have a video of my match reads. I know it is late, but better late than ever. Hi, my name is Florence and welcome back to my channel, the One More Book podcast. I'm a Black woman living in Germany who loves reading books. I also have a podcast that you can listen to where I talk about books, of course, with my co-host Lily. We are both Black women who live in Germany who love reading books, and we talk about different books. So I will link the podcast below. Also, don't forget to follow me here on YouTube, but also on my socials. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram, where I try to be very more present than in short form content than here on YouTube. So welcome back. One of the books that I read, I read a total of 9 books in March, which I surpassed the list. I would say I was impressed by the books that I read, even though there were some that moved into April. If you can watch my previous video where I talked about the books that I wanted to read, you will see there are some missing. I will start with an audiobook that I listened to. I will put it here. It's called Burn Down, Rise Up by Vincent Tirado, and this is a book. The story is based in New York, and it follows a group of teenagers who are trying to uncover the mystery of the disappearance of their friends. They are teenagers who are disappearing in New York, and it is a fantasy novel, and it is a YA, young adults fantasy novel, and which is a new genre for me, and I'm not so sure that I enjoy it. But of course, I had the book in my Audible library, so I just wanted to read it and find out what it's about. What can I say? How would I rate it? I feel I'm guilty of maybe rating it lowly because it's just not a genre that I enjoy. But if you're someone who is into YA fantasy, I would definitely recommend it. It's by the author, I believe, is binary identifying. So it's a nice way to read, just to widen your bookshelf. I feel like it's always nice to diversify your bookshelf by reading books from different authors. And also there's a queer story in the book, which I find is also something that we need to read more of. So I would definitely recommend it if you're into YA fantasy books. Then I read a total of 8 physical books. I will just go through them. I haven't rated them like from highest to lowest. It's just the way I have them here. The first one is Decolonizing Wellness, a cutie BIPOC-centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self-image, and achieve body liberation by Dalia, Kinsley. This is a book that you are reading in my physical book club here in Germany. And what can I say? I gave this book, I think, a 3.5. I feel like this book it's an important book, especially for Black women. As a Black woman, just going through life, there's an image of beauty or of wellness that I constantly see that just doesn't include me, and it doesn't include queer or anyone that belongs in the cutie BIPOC sphere. So this is an important book. I feel like I have done a lot of self-work when it comes to my wellness, what I feel is wellness to me, and I know what applies to me, what works for me, and most of the things are things I already know or I'm already applying. But it's just an important book because we just need to decolonize a lot a lot in our heads. So this is all a very important book if you're, I would say if you're younger, if you're younger, but for us of a certain age, we've done the work. So I gave this a 3.5. Next is Passing by Nella Larsen, and I was recommended this book by a book talker, and it follows the story of two, I would say, friends. They were friends when they were younger. Claire and I believe Irene, they were childhood friends who lost contact and later they met. It's based in the time of the Harlem Renaissance. I believe that's around the 1920s, where there was still segregation. And both of them are passing. So they are pretending to be white or going around as white women, even though they are black. And one is living, one passes outside when she goes to shops or restaurants, but she's married to a black man and lives as a black woman, while the other is 100% passing. She is married to a white man who doesn't know that she is black. So they meet later in life, and it is just, yeah, there is just so much it's a relatively small book, as you can see, but there is just so much into it. The ending really broke my heart. But it is a really good book because it brings focus into racism earlier and passing during that time, because you go into the book really, for me, I went into the book judging these women but as I read along, then I kind of started feeling sorry for not wanting to live in the skin you're born in, because there are some things that you would want to experience that are just not, you're not allowed to. So a very important book. And another interesting fact that when I was researching about the book, is that Nella Larsen, she's of mixed origin. Her mother was Danish and the father was American, black American, I believe, yeah. And her mother was actually born in Schleswig-Holstein. That's a province that I live in, that I almost live in. It's just next, next to my house. So I found that very interesting. I think I gave this a 4. I'm not so sure, I have to check. The next book that I read is Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo. And this is a reread. I've already read it. I read it a couple of years ago, and then it was chosen as a book club pick in another book club that I'm in, a Patreon book club by Black Law. I will link her channel here. She does really good videos on books, and I'm a Patreon member in her Patreon book club. And this was the pick for March. I enjoyed it all over again. It's about a 70-something year old man, Barrington Jedediah Walker, who is from Antigua, and we follow his story from his younger days living in Antigua, and then later he moves to the UK with his wife. He gets married and he's having an affair all through his marriage life. Over 50 years he's been having an affair with his best friend, a man called Maurice. So it's suspense filled. It is funny. Barrington is a funny character, but I also find myself hating him for just being unfair to some of the people in his life. And of course the queer theme is so important, and especially queer characters who are queer but now at an older age. It's interesting to see how they're navigating life in this identity that was not accepted when they were young. I would say even now there are some spaces where it is not accepted, but just seeing them navigating it, I really enjoyed this book again for the second time. And I think I gave it a 5-star. Very highly recommended. The next book that I that I read, I think I've talked about this book a lot, is The 7 Moments of Maali, Almeida by Shehan Karunatilaka. I picked this book, I think, last year. Never read it. Found myself starting and stopping, and it took someone commenting on that on TikTok, on a TikTok video that I made, where I was saying I'm reading it and I'm almost DNFing it, and they told me, please continue reading it. It's so good. So I kept to it, and I'm so glad that I did. We follow the story of Maali Almeida, who is a gay photographer who has died. So that's where the story starts. He's died, and he's trying to find out who killed him and why he was killed. And yeah, it's an interesting story. It's set in Sri Lanka. So this is the first book that I'm reading that is set in Sri Lanka, and there are a lot of themes that are in the book that are real. The writer uses a lot of real occurrences in Sri Lanka, and uses them in his book, which I found very, very eye-opening and made me really Google a lot of things. I kept on Googling. He used so many different interesting stories, and it's the winner of the Booker Prize in 2022. So well deserved. And I believe that the book was originally written in another language and then translated into English. So maybe that's why because of the translation, there are some bits that you don't really, you have to struggle to understand. But I'm glad I kept to it. It's a really, really good book. Really, really good book. A character that I did love, Maali Almeida. But he made the book worth it. He made the book worth reading it. I think I gave it a 4-star, if I'm not so sure. Yeah. Then the next is a book that we read together with my co-host on my podcast, Lily, and we even talked about it. You can go now on my podcast to listen to it. There's an episode we've done about it, which we both loved. It's a book, Before I Let Go, by Kennedy Ryan. It's very popular. Kennedy Ryan is a romance author, and this book, it's a love story. And we follow Jasmine and Josiah, a couple living in the US, as they are navigating their relationship after the loss of a child. So it's not just a love story, but there are themes that are raised in, like mental health, child loss, divorce, because they are divorced. As the book starts, they're divorced. So they are navigating co-parenting. They work together. They own a business together, and all this. But it's so done in a very, very beautiful way. I enjoyed this book. It's a series. I think there are 3 books. So this is the first one. There's a second one that has come out that I also want to read. But I really, really enjoyed this book. And it brought, the conversations about it was something that I loved, because themes like therapy and things that are not really talked about, especially in the Black community. So the way Kennedy Ryan talked about it in the book was so good. Highly recommended. The next book that I absolutely loved, one of my favorite reads of the year, is The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. I enjoyed this book. We follow a fig tree, the story of a fig tree. I remember when I started reading this book, I thought it was a person, the character was a human being, but no, it's a fig tree. And we follow the fig tree as it migrates from I will put it down here so that I don't butcher the name. It's a town on the border between Greek and North Cyprus, and the tree is carried along on a journey by a teenage. No, he came later when he was much older, but he first moved when he was a teenager. So later in life, one of the main characters, he carries the fig tree from his home country and moves it with it to the UK. So we follow him, and he has his wife later, but the story starts when they are back living in this city that I can't pronounce. And a beautifully written story. We learn so much about the history, so much about trees, about animals. It is magical. It's a magical book, and Elif Shafak just she's a star when as she writes. And there's even a queer love story in the book, which I love in almost all her books, because she identifies as queer. She always includes a queer theme in the book. So highly recommend it. And look at the cover, so beautiful. I think I gave it a 5-star. Then another 5-star book that I read is Black Girl Call Home, a collection of poems by Jasmine. My co-star Lily also recommended this book, and I had to get my own copy. Just look, all the annotations that I did. I enjoyed it. It's a book for us, Black women. It's a Bible for us that we need in our lives. She talks about racism. She talks about sexism. She talks about the Black woman's body, our hair, our relationships with our mothers, our relationships with our daughters, our relationships with Black men, queer relationships. So well done, so well written. And look at the cover. This is a Bible to every Black woman, to every Black girl. I'm happy that I own this copy, and I think I will own it for the rest of my life and always go back to it. And highly recommend it. Of course, this was a 5-star read for me. Then last but not least, this is Drinking from Graveyard Wells, a collection of short stories by Yvette, Lisa, and Ndlovu. This was a book club pick by another book club that I'm in. And the author is Zimbabwean, so we follow, she has different stories. The stories follow different women. They are female-based, most of the stories, the main characters. And she delves into different themes. We get to go into colonialism. There's a bit of Afro-realism or Afrofuturism, I'm not so sure. Where there is a magical theme that comes into the stories. There is migration, there is education, there are stories about relationships between mothers and daughters, mothers and husbands and wives. Stories. There's even a story that goes into MLM, which is something that I love reading. I love watching anti-MLM YouTube videos. So it was nice to read a story that talks about the MLM movement that is also in Africa. So I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it a 4-star. And yeah, beautifully written. The cover is so beautiful. Yeah, a 4-star. Highly recommend it. So those were the books that I read in March. Like I said, I really enjoyed reading in March. Let me show you the pile. And as you can see, there's yeah, they were all different themed, which I really enjoyed. And I'm also glad, I'm also glad that I read a book by a man, because I'm trying to just diversify my readings. It's also good to listen to what men have to say, because you can be in a bubble of reading books by female authors. So those are my March reads. I would love to know if there are any books that you've read that are in my March reads. What did you read? What did you love? Have you read any of these books? What did you think about it? As I said, subscribe to my channel and follow me along as I discover new authors and new books, and listen to our podcast where we have longer conversations, and also follow me on my socials where I post daily.